Hi, my name is Elizabeth Bruno, and I'll be talking to you about the uncontacted tribes in the Amazon. In the tropical rainforest, there are many uncontacted tribes that have been surviving the harsh and diverse environment for thousands of years. Uncontacted tribes are communities or groups of indigenous people living without sustained contact to neighboring communities and the rest of the world. So why bring up uncontacted tribes, you may ask? The world's last isolated groups are in danger. Roads, industrial, agriculture, mining, and logging operations are constantly pushing their way into the uncontacted tribes' territories. The forest is destroyed, and the isolated tribes are forced to flee further into the jungle. The tribes have to fight through diseases, missionaries, colonists, loggers, abundances of food, and many more life-threatening challenges as they live day to day uncontacted and isolated from the rest of the world. So I am going to explore the dangers for these tribes and if the outside world should help them or let them live in isolation. The isolated tribes are known for their lack of clothing, food, protection, and medicine, and many more assets that play a huge role in a person's life. Knowledge passed down from the elder tribes show that survival skills in which the tribe uses to hunt and be able to stay alive in the dangerous jungle. With lack of resources and protection, the uncontacted tribes are getting more and more fearful as the days go on. In June 2014, one of the world's lost isolated tribes dressed in loin clothes and spears emerged from the diverse and thick Amazon jungle near Peru.
They were the last of the previously uncontacted Sapanawa Indians. Now they were fleeing from their ancestral forests after an invasion of outsiders. Groups of men from the uncontacted Sapanawa tribe arrived at an indigenous village with the intention of establishing contact. A local man, Z Korea, reported that they said the majority of people were massacred by non-Indians in Peru, who shot at them with guns and set fire to their houses of the uncontacted. They say that so many old people died that they had to bury 3 people in one grave. They say that so many people died that they couldn't even bury all their corpses and they were eaten by vultures. The Sapanawa had been forced away from their homes in fear and desperation. Can any free choice be made where illegal loggers, oil companies, and missionaries put innocent people at extreme risk of violence and devastating epidemics? For the isolated tribes who face catastrophe unless their land is protected, security and anomaly can only come from recognition and proper protection of the land ownership rights. After they decided the situation called for drastic measures, the Indians did not just stumble upon the village by chance, as they knew exactly where to go. They know far more about the outside world than most people think, says Fiona Watson, research director for the organization Survival Interventional. They are experts at living in the forest and are well aware of the presence of outsiders. People have the misconceptions surrounding isolated tribes as their decision for contact was not driven as a desire for material goods and food, but by fear.
Most tribes hide from all threats as they fear for their lives. Members of their tribes have been known to kill people who get too close, such as fishermen or people trying to contact with the uncontacted. It is mostly fears that motivate such hostilities and keep isolated groups from making contact. In the past centuries and decades, isolated tribes were often murdered and enslaved by outsiders. From the time white Europeans first arrived in the Americas, the indigenous people learned to fear them, which was passed down generations. People have this romanticized view that isolated tribes have chosen to keep away from the modern evil world.
People who have come out of hiding, they all have the same story, that they were interested in contact with the outside world, but were way too scared to do so. In some cases in the 70s and 80s, the Brazilian government did try to establish peaceful contact with the uncontacted people, often aiming towards forced assimilation, relocation. They even set up attraction posts where they offered metal tools and other goods that the people might find valuable, trying to lure them out of hiding. This would sometimes lead to violent altercations or usually disease outbreaks.
The isolated people have no immunity to some bugs, which is known to wipe out half the tribe's population in a matter of weeks or months. Missionaries venturing into the jungle would also pass viruses and bacteria, killing people they meant to save. Loggers are one of the biggest threats to uncontacted tribes. Peru is home to some of the world's last commercially viable mahogany trees. Tragically, these trees are in the same areas of some of the world's last uncontacted tribes. Rights groups and activists have long campaigned in the protection and defense of indigenous land in the Amazon, fighting against oil companies as well as tragic history of violence that saw tribe people victimized.
Survival International, which campaigns for the rights of indigenous communities worldwide, says Peru and Brazil are not doing enough to save these uncontacted tribes. Loggers are often armed and may shoot at the indigenous if they come across them. Terrible encounters have been reported in the mid-1990s when loggers made contact with the previously contacted tribe Marijuana, as half the tribe was killed.
Logging has forced many tribes to flee from their territories and homes. Loggers have devastated their lands as trees were chopped, game was scared away, and fish killed. Many people have taken matters into their own hands, setting up warriors and blockades in order to keep the loggers out. Blockades often bring shortages of food as well as reprisals from loggers.
So what do we need to do as people? We need to spread the word that the last uncontacted tribes are in danger and that we need to fight against the illegal logging, the illegal oil companies, and all of the illegal activity happening in the Amazon. I believe that we should let the uncontacted people be and let them come out of hiding when they are ready.